Good morning, dear children. So we are going to continue with D block elements, and today is our lecture 26. Last class we have discussed about the atomic and ionic radii of D block elements, their metallic properties, their melting and boiling points, atomic volume, density, classification into 4 transition series. That means the introductory part we could complete in that lecture. So today I am going to continue, and next property will be ionization energy. As I remember, 4 points we have discussed. So let's make it as number 5. Ionization energy. As you all know, the energy which is required to remove the most loosely bonded electron from an isolated gaseous atom. So D block elements, their ionization energy, first ionization energy lies between S block and P block elements. So naturally, as compared to S block elements, they are less electropositive and they will have high ionization energy, but as compared to P block elements, they are more electropositive because across the period ionization energy increases. So as compared to S block, these D block elements, they have high ionization energy, but on going down the group, ionization energy decreases. Now, ionization energy plays a vital role in explaining the stability of certain compounds as well. Let's take an example. K2PtCl6 and K2NiCl6. Okay. In both these cases, you can see oxidation state of the central atom is +4 because 2 into +1 and 6 into -1. So -6 and +2, the central atom becomes +4. So far as potassium hexachloroplatinate is concerned, this compound is stable, but K2NiCl6, this is not stable. Why does it happen? Similar type of compounds are there. It is because platinum, the sum of 4 ionization energies in case of platinum is less than E1 plus, E2 plus, E3 plus, E4 of nickel. Okay, the energy, these are the successive ionization energies. So 4 successive ionization energies of platinum is less as compared to the successive ionization energies of nickel. But if you consider the +2 oxidation state, then +2 of nickel is more stable than +2 of platinum. So how come this happen? Because in case of nickel, E1 plus E2 is less as compared to the E1 plus E2 of platinum. So lower the ionization energy, stable is the oxidation state, and vice versa. So therefore ionization energy, it plays a vital role in explaining the stability of the compounds. Now next is alloy formation. Okay, everybody knows that how do we define an alloy? Alloys are homogeneous mixture of 2 or more metals or non-metals. So why they can easily form alloy? You can see brass. What is the composition? Copper and zinc. Bronze, copper and tin. So most of the alloys, they have transition metals included in that. So why they easily form alloys? Because alloys are homogeneous mixture of these metals, and since they have almost similar atomic size, so one can substitute the other, and therefore they can easily form the alloys. So next property, after alloy we will see oxidation state. Very, very important. Now oxidation states. First of all, in first transition series, let me discuss scandium. It is stable in its +3 oxidation state. Then comes titanium, atomic number 22, and it is 3d2 4s2. So it has +2, +3 and +4. Then comes vanadium 2, 3, 4 and 5. Chromium 3d5 4s1. So it can have +1 also, highly unstable, but still +3, +4, +5, +6 will be the highest because 3d5 4s1. Then manganese +2, +3, +4, +5, +6, +7. Then iron 2, 3, ferrous, ferric. Some of the classes +4. Then like Fe3O4, it can show 8/3 also. Fe3O4 if you consider, then 3x plus 4 into -2 equals to 0. So x equals to +8/3. So that is a conventional method. So that's very few cases. Then comes cobalt 2 and 3, nickel 27, 28, copper 1 and 2, and zinc +2. Okay, this is about the first transition series. Some of the noteworthy points. Okay, in first transition series, you can see that +2 oxidation state is common except scandium. Why scandium shows only +3 oxidation state? Scandium, its configuration is argon 4s2 3d1. The moment it loses these 3 electrons, then it attains or acquires argon, stable noble gas configuration. So there is a logic behind it that scandium is stable in +3 because it attains the nearest noble gas configuration. So which oxidation state is common? +2 is common for the first transition series. Exception is scandium, which shows +3. Then which metal shows +1 oxidation state? Now you can see it is copper. Which metal shows highest oxidation state in first transition series? You can see manganese +7. So first transition series +2 is common, exception is scandium, +1 is shown by copper, highest is shown by manganese. If we consider the entire transition elements, then the highest oxidation state amongst all will be shown by osmium +8. Which compound? OSO4, and ruthenium as well, RuO4. So osmium shows highest oxidation state amongst all transition elements. So transition elements, why do they possess variable oxidation states? Due to participation of N-1d and Ns electrons both. Okay, not only their d orbital is taking part in chemical combination, s orbitals also take part in chemical combination, and therefore they have variable oxidation states. So if a question comes, why do they possess variable oxidation states? It is due to participation of N-1d and Ns electrons both. Amongst first transition series, what is the common oxidation state? +2. Who is the exception? Scandium. Who shows +1? Copper. Who shows highest in first transition series? Manganese, that is +7. Okay, I hope it's clear to everyone. So just to go through it and prepare a list of it. This is very, very important. Dear children, make note of it. Very important for MCQ objective. and for conceptual questions as well. Now the next is interstitial compounds. Interstitial compounds. Okay. Now most of the transition elements, they have hexagonal close packing, body centered close packing, simple cubic also it can be. So they have different type of close packed structures, and even if they are closely packed, okay, I'm just giving a two-dimensional structure in solid state. I taught you in class 11 their three-dimensional structure as well. So these solids, these metals, even if they are so very closely packed, but still there will be some left or vacant spaces, that is voids. And these voids are occupied by hydrogen, then halogen, nitrogen, carbon, etc. Why these non-metals occupy these voids? Because they are smaller in size, so they can easily be accommodated in these voids. If it is occupied by hydrogen, known as hydrides, by carbon, carbides, nitrides and halides. Apart from this, these interstitial compounds, they are non-stoichiometric. Okay? Non-stoichiometric means the ratio of metal to this non-metal may or may not be same, and normally it is not same because the voids cannot be equivalent to the number of metals. So therefore these interstitial compounds, they are non-stoichiometric in nature. If you remember in class 11, different type of hydrides we studied. Ionic hydride, salt like, covalent hydrides. In covalent we studied electron rich, electron deficient, electron precise, and then interstitial hydrides or non-stoichiometric hydrides, then hydride gap as well. So after interstitial compounds, these interstitial compounds, then we'll study about their magnetic properties. Okay. So most of the transition metals are paramagnetic. Okay. Why they are paramagnetic? This question comes in reasoning questions, conceptual. Why most of the transition metals are paramagnetic? So they are paramagnetic due to partially filled d orbitals. Okay. Since they have partially filled d orbitals, so they are paramagnetic in nature. Now exceptions are zinc, cadmium and mercury, and they are dimagnetic. Why they are dimagnetic? As they have fully filled orbitals. Already we have discussed. Okay. So zinc is 3d10 4s2, cadmium 4d10 5s2, mercury 5d10 6s2. So since they have fully filled orbitals, mu equals to 0, magnetic moment is 0, and that is why they are dimagnetic. How do we calculate the magnetic moment for these paramagnetic species? For that the formula is mu is equal to n into n plus 2 under root Bm. What is mu? Magnetic moment. What is small n? Number of unpaired electrons. And Bm is the unit which is known as Bohr's magneton. Take an example. Suppose we have to calculate for chromium plus 3. So chromium is argon 3d5 4s1. So in plus 3 oxidation state, 1 electron goes from here, 2 from here. So it will be argon 3d3. 3d3 means how many unpaired is there? 3 unpaired is there. So mu will be equal to 3 into 3 plus 2. So it will be 5 into 3 root 15 Bm. Okay. if it is suppose vanadium 4 plus, so vanadium is argon 3d2 4s2. I am talking about vanadium. So if it is 3d3, sorry, because vanadium is 23 atomic number. So 4 plus, that means 2 goes from here and 2 more from here. Now it has only 1 unpaired electron left. So in this case mu will be root under n into n plus 2. Unpaired electron is 1. So 1 plus 2. So this will be root 3 bm. Root 3 value, as you all know, 1.732 bm. This is very, very important in next lesson, coordination compounds also. You need to calculate magnetic moment. And sometimes you know what happens, the magnetic moment is given, that for so and so species magnetic moment is given, and you are asked to calculate n, that is number of unpaired electron. So what happens, if mu is given, then you have to calculate the value of n. So in this case, when you remove root, then it will come in quadratic equation. You will have two values, one plus and one minus. Minus will be ignored and you will consider the positive value. So that's very important, my dear students. Paramagnetic, partially filled d orbitals, exceptions, zinc, cadmium and mercury, they have mu equals to 0, because if you put it in this formula, as they have no unpaired electrons, so naturally mu will be equal to 0. And how do we calculate their magnetic moment? By using this formula. So these three are the important points related with their magnetic. So after magnetic properties, next we are going to discuss color of transition elements. And most of the transition metals, they are colored. You have seen in lab any salt of iron in +2, ferrous, you have seen it is light green in color. Ferric, it is brown. Nickel, it is dark green in color. Copper, blue in color, and so on. Once again, exceptions are zinc, cadmium and mercury. So on the basis of these observations, once again we can say that for color also who is responsible? Partially filled d orbitals. That means it is the number of unpaired electron who is going to provide color to these complexes. Okay, so zinc, cadmium and mercury, why they are colorless? As they do not have any unpaired electron. Why others are colored? Because they have partially filled d orbitals and they have unpaired electron. So what happens with these unpaired electrons? What actually they do? So these unpaired electrons, they absorb color. Okay, and they absorb color from the visible region, and the color which they absorb, complementary color of that appears, and this phenomenon is known as DD transition. So my dear students, whenever you explain the reason for their color, don't forget to write this term, and you write it, you underline it, or you give it in inverted comma wherever you have to represent the answer. DD transition. Now try to understand what actually DD transition is. So d orbitals, you know what happens? They are degenerate. Degenerate means they have equivalent energy, but in absence of an electric and magnetic field, actually they are degenerate. When there is no ions, approach is there. But when they are approached by anions, when they are approached by electric and magnetic field, then they do not remain degenerate and rather they get splitted. In next chapter, coordination compounds, we are going to study about it in detail. This is free metal ion. It is degenerate. It has same or equivalent energy, and it is divided in a set of two, dxy, dyz and dzx. And this is dx square minus y square and dz square. Suppose titanium, okay, 3 plus. Titanium 3 plus means argon 3d1 because titanium is argon 3d2 4s2. Its atomic number is 22. So in plus 3, 2 goes from here, 1 from here, 3d1. So this is the unpaired electron. When it absorbs light, then what happens? This electron enters to the higher energy level. When it enters to the higher energy level, it absorbs energy, it absorbs light, and whichever light it absorbs, the complementary color appears. And I'll give you violet and yellow. In p block elements also I had explained about it. Violet and yellow, they are complementary to each other. Then blue and red and orange and green. Okay, so this you should learn. Whenever a question is there, why they appear yellow? Because it appears violet. Why does it appear blue? Suppose in case of copper, because copper absorbs red color, therefore it appears blue. And the main reason behind the color is DD transition. What is DD transition? Their unpaired electron absorbs light from the visible region and the complementary color is appeared that we can see with our naked eye. Why zinc, cadmium and mercury? They are colorless, they do not have DD transition. Why they do not have? Because they have fully filled orbitals. So remember my dear children, for magnetic character, for color, for all these important properties, unpaired electron is required, and that is why zinc, cadmium and mercury, they do not possess these properties, but still they are regarded as transition elements. Why? Because some of the properties like alloy formation, interstitial compounds, moreover the last electron enters in d subshell, and that is why they come under d block elements, but these properties are different as compared to the other transition elements. Okay, now we are left with some more properties like their ability to act as reducing agent, then complex formation and so on. So in next lecture we are going to complete those properties, and you remember, you try to learn these properties, go through the conceptual questions from in-text as well as exercise. Till then, goodbye, thank you all.